introduce ourselves again?
No. That's what I was just saying. I'm not going to do that. I think you know our names. You think so? You want to? Okay, we can go around and do names. Miss HR.
It's for the benefit of the camera.
Okay.
Oh.
I guess we can.
Do I start?
Oh, no, we'll wait for the camera. I guess we will introduce ourselves.
Okay.
We have Miss HR advice.
I know.
We're good? Okay.
Annie's making us.
Exactly. Welcome back. Nice to see you again. And thank you for coming out and spending some more time with us. We are going to follow a similar format to last time. We're going to rotate asking a series of questions. The last question will be your opportunity to ask questions of us. And Barb is going to be the timekeeper. She will hold up her signs. And if you don't see one, whoever's asking the question, we'll make sure that you see that.
How long do we have? Is it?
It's an hour.
No. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll start there and we'll go around with introductions. So Allison Sherman.
Katie Hackert.
Vivian Vadova.
Tina Riley.
Pete Kelsenberg.
Annie Porbani.
Great.
Bev Petrie.
Oh, sorry. Great, okay, so we're gonna start with the questions. All right, question 1. Since your interview, is there anything you have thought of that you wish you had told us? In addition, is there anything you spoke to in your first interview but would wish to elaborate on further?
Yes, I did walk out of the last interview thinking about a few things. You mentioned, or we had questions on innovation, and just want to speak to the high school this year with the pandemic and students struggling. They changed their office hours on Wednesdays, and they are bringing in students for extra individual small group support. During the last couple of hours of the day, anybody with 70% and under in any of their classes, and that has been really a nice support for our kids. And we made an article in AMSD, so really proud of them. And when I was an executive director, equivalent of an assistant superintendent after our strategic planning, the community wanted the elementary schools to have art and a possible language. So we worked very, very hard, and that's when we changed from a 5-block to a 6-block. We added art to the specialists, and teachers needed more planning time, and the students with art and the other subjects need to go take a deeper dive into learning. And so we added 10 minutes from a 30-minute to a 40-minute block, and was really proud of that. Also, I don't know if you know my background with referendums, levies, and bonds. So I've been through a few of those. One didn't pass, one did pass with a levy, and then a bond, because I know we have a possible bond coming up, passed a $97.5 million bond, and that's when we redid the front of the schools for safety reasons. We added on and upgraded the high school, and we have our pony activity center, turf, and our fall services at our elementary schools. What else I can say is I just want to reiterate and emphasize that we're about kids here. They should be the heart of every thing we do. And it filled my bucket today to be out in schools and see so many familiar staff faces and a lot of students smiling and learning. And I'm excited to attend the Chicago musical at the theater tomorrow night. And Tuesday night, I was at the Stillwater City Hall meeting with our unified basketball team. They declared it their day. And Mayor Ted said, I just love it when we beat Minnetonka, and one of the students said, we knew we would crush them. So just seeing students, it fills my bucket, so.
Great, okay. Thank you so much.
All right, next question. We believe building effective leadership teams is critical to student success. As you look at Stillwater area schools, what specific competency and leadership traits would you look for in administrative colleagues on your team, and why? If you were to feel some realignment were necessary, Please provide specific examples of how you would go about making a change.
Okay, we just were talking about this on Tuesday during an admin meeting. We are so very, very fortunate to have the leadership team that we do. Highly skilled, absolutely student-focused. They care about the kids. They have a strong commitment. They have worked tirelessly during this time. They have a lot of strengths. Within the schools, we just don't get a lot of parent phone calls because they have those relationships. They are problem solving and they're putting kids first. They have that, parents are their child's best advocate and they work collaboratively. I would say at our district level, we've had a number of change since I've been here. We've had a new director of HR, a new director of T&L, a new assistant superintendent, a new director of operations, new data person, and so I'm probably missing somebody, but there's a lot of change. And I take pride in our hiring process. We hire for strengths. Right now, we're waiting in our teaching and learning. We have an opening, and we are holding out until we find that right skill set with a literacy and reading background and focus. So we need to be skipping down the halls when we hire people, and when we hire well, it helps everybody out. I think right now, I've never felt as supported as I have with such a collaborative group. So they each have their own skill set, and we have very open dialogue. I think we can take calculated risks. They are visible, they're out in the schools, they are seen, and again, they really care about kids. Everybody provides feedback, and we need to celebrate more, but we do celebrate when things go well, and it's been a tough time, and just again, proud of our team. Let me just read this. Realignment, we've started doing a little bit of that within our budget. Broke up the Director of Finance and Operations into 2 positions because finance is so extremely complex now. That was recommended to us. And operations, we have a bond and a lot of construction, transportation. It's complex as well, so we have done that. The other piece that we're working on, as I just mentioned, our teaching and learning department. We need to lean in on achievement and instruction in a really big way. It needs to be relentless. When I first started back in 2007 in our district, I think I counted 17 people, if I remember right, in the teaching and learning department. It got cut down to as low as 2. I think we have, you could call 4 positions in there now. It needs to be built back up because that's our heart and soul of what we do for our kids. So that is being worked on.
Thank you very much.
Our district is becoming increasingly diverse in age, religion, education, ethnicity, race, socioeconomics, and political views. What would you do to help unite a district that has such a breadth of views and experiences? Please be specific.
Okay. Our district is changing, and it's changing at quite a fast pace. I don't know if I mentioned last time or not, but a couple of weeks ago, I spent a Saturday morning at the Woodbury YMCA, and we were having this same conversation on racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. It was mentioned during that meeting, the 2000 census in Woodbury, we had 10% of residents diverse background of color. 2010, it was 20%. 2020, it is now 30%. But what really caught my attention is that the 18 and under, it's 40%. And so really in the southern part of our district, it's changing, but it is changing everywhere. You can walk through our schools and see that. And so how do we unite a district that has such a breadth of relationships, relationships, relationships? I cannot stress that enough. You also walk into anything without trust, and you need to earn that trust. You need to be transparent. I have learned that you need to communicate clearly and often. You need to be visible. We have tried to be out in the community. The referendum, there were over 90 community meetings. We have a lot of church groups, businesses, there's retirement homes, city councils. So we've tried to really reach out and connect and starting to build more partnerships as well. And I think we need to have a clear strategic plan and mission and make sure everybody knows that we are about kids. We are about kids, supporting them, knowing them as individuals, and preparing them for after they graduate. I did bring this, which we do have a community engagement chart that we look at, and we want to inform, consult, involve, collaborate, and empower our community, and we can do that with anything from listening sessions, conversations, interviews, surveys. We've used thought exchange, newsletters, websites, social media, and empowering the community. It's about referendum and elections. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. How do you go about developing a budget? When resources are at a minimum, how do you go about prioritizing funding and, if necessary, cut the budget? Again, be specific and then explain how you help inform district stakeholders regarding school finances.
Okay. I don't think there's a day that goes by that we're not working on the budget. And we have been very fortunate to have a director of finance with probably 40 plus years of experience. And we have learned a lot from him. He will always say that a budget is always going through 3 phases. You are auditing, which we've had 4 changes in the director of finance position since coming in here, and we were able to manage a clean audit with no findings, and that's pretty amazing when it's more than 120 million annual budget. But you have an auditing budget from the year before. You have an operating budget where you are supporting students and putting resources towards what they need. And then right now what we're really working hard on is budgeting and figuring out what our revenue will be this following year. And it's, you have to look at enrollment. We've had some enrollment loss. Our director of finance will tell you that any time a student walks through the doors, they're wearing a little backpack full of about $10,000 plus, and we need to really focus on that. Funding also comes in with levy, and the school board sets those limits. And then we have MDE, what you would call what ifs, and we have an accountant right now helping with that to try to project that budget. And it's hard to get down to an exact budget, but you need to continually look at it. With the pandemic, the inflation, and everything else that we've had, we are tightening the reins and trying to be conservative. And so we are going to start presenting to the school board a monthly budget presentation and update. Let me just look at this question again. Prioritizing funding. Right now, the director of finance, the assistant superintendent, and myself, we are meeting with every department head and spending an hour or two just going over their budget right now. where it is and where we want it to go. We are waiting for the revenue projections to come in. I think it's the first week well, it's coming up. It's like, should be here by next week. We need that, and then we have, which I will show you, I can show you now. I'm going to pass this out at the end, but we are working on, we have a strategic plan process here, looking at our needs, reviewing our goals, and aligning resources. That's what we're trying to do now. We've updated our operational plan, and this is kind of the bridge between the past and the future because we need to update our strategic plan. And with this will set our priorities, but we need to know what kind of revenue we have, and then we'll work together to figure out budgets for each department coming up next year. Let's see, cutting the budget. That is not a fun process. I've been through that a few times. When you are sitting there with Post-its and pink highlighters and trying to go through every line, and you are not able to buy color ink or colored paper for the kids because things are so tight, it's not good. So this is why you need to really understand your finances and think towards the future. If the community had not supported our referendum, that's what we would be doing right now. And so thank you to the community. How do you go about prioritizing funding? How is it going to impact kids in a school? You go back to your strategic plan, your priorities, and how is this going to, professor at the University of Minnesota used to always say, how is this going to affect a kid on a Tuesday in a classroom? Let's see. Stakeholders, as I mentioned before, how do we inform stakeholders regarding school finances? We do regular reports at the school board. I believe our audit is put on our website, and then people can request more information as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Many students are suffering from stress, mental health, and behavioral issues. These are just a few barriers they face to reaching their full potential. Give us distinct examples of how you would implement a support system for staff, parents, and students to reduce these and other barriers hindering their full academic and social emotional growth.
Okay. With the pandemic, this is what keeps you up at night. This is what you hear across the metro area. You read articles, it's happening everywhere. There's a lot going on after this pandemic, and we need to try and support that. For staff, we've tried to do this in newsletters, remind them for self-care. Remember to take care of yourself or you can't take care of the kids. And you need to be able to support kids each and every day when you walk through those doors. We also, trying to think what we have here, OMADA Mind and OMADA Health. I've even signed up for those where that's a free online service that they have a little, I think it's weekly things that you can read up on and do. We have Washington County that is starting it's for teachers, but it's for all staff, free modules. Lakeview Hospital is offering some time together to make presentations as well. We have a free benefit with our employee assistance program, and that's been in place for years. But we tried to cut down meetings, any unnecessary meetings, to give teachers extra time to try and plan. And I think we have a great day coming up in PD, and that'll be the first time that they're in person. Parents, we have social workers at our elementary schools. We're changing the name from student advocates to social workers because they are licensed social workers. We have counselors, and we have a lot of resources that they can help. Students, we've had ESSER funds where we're revamping our green rooms. The partnership plan, thank you very much. They are covering some trauma-informed PD, professional development, that's next Friday. And with our ESSER funds, we've added intervention time, student engagement staff at our secondary schools, extra psych time. We have a lot of field trips, summer programming, the tutoring you've heard about that we have, after-school tutoring for students that qualify. We're trying to pull everything together. Family Means, we have a state grant where therapists will come into the schools and work with families and work through their insurances as well. But this is a barrier to learning. It goes back to if that's a roadblock, we need to try and remove it because we are back on achievement, and that's how you get there.
All right, thank you.
All right, so my question is in two parts. What trends do you see happening in career, technical, and special education? And describe for us how you stay current on these trends, and specifically how you would explore what lies ahead in the future for career, technical, and special ed programs.
Okay, that is a two-part question. Okay. Career and tech, we have a tech levy that just passed, and so I think we're going to be moving forward with some really neat things. And our Director of Technology is going to be very, very busy. I think he's already been busy. Just at the high school today, walking by the rooms project Lead the Way, we have pathways. The pathways has brought in the community, a lot of community and businesses. We did take a tour a couple of years ago at Alexandria High School, which was ahead, I think, at the time. But we have staff here that really put extra time and efforts into pathways. I brought that. We have, and I think this is just going to grow more and more. It gives kids choice. They just had a simulated operation class, and then you go over to high school and they're building their own furniture. But they have arts and communication, business, health sciences, human services, STEM, and environment. And this is really gives students opportunities. There's internships. I sat in a room with Rachel Stile, Bob Manning, that facilitate and oversee this. And I bet we had 30 to 50 community members, business partners trying to support our schools. So Tech Levy, Pathways, Project Lead the Way, it's there. How do I stay current on this? I'm a member of AMSD, MASA, MASBO, MSBA. So I try and they send you magazines and articles. We network, we meet once a week, superintendents. And then I would say we have a director of technology that's probably the best on this side of the Mississippi and the other side too. And so we do have, and I brought this, and I'm not sharing this, but I want people to see when we're talking, you had us write some information about strategic planning. This is coming your way, and this is the new Learning and Innovation Technology Plan. And you look at it, and it's just like a who knows who of everything you need to know. And portrait of a graduate's in here, mission and vision, systems, stakeholder involvement. So that's how you stay cutting edge on that. Special ed. I have to also give kudos to our Director of Special Education. It's pretty amazing, always looking at systems and how to support kids. We had a lot of, I would say, conflict with families before he came, and parents, again, are their child's best advocate. We are about kids, and you need to be flexible. We have restructured, we have actually restructured the special ed supports. There was an open position. It was a director's position. And we decided not to hire that position, and we took two coordinator positions instead and worked together to provide more support at both the elementary level and the secondary level. How do I stay current? I'm a member of the MACE, it's Minnesota Association of Special Ed, and they are a wonderful network. What lies ahead for special ed? With the pandemic, our state percentage for students with IEPs is now up to 17%, and we're right there with them. We are now 17%, so we are going to have to figure out how we do things differently. And I think, again, our technology, our tech levy, will really be a benefit to all students that need that.
Thank you.
Describe your experience in working with employee unions and collective bargaining, including the negotiations process. Please be as specific as possible.
Well, we just worked on that a couple of nights ago. I've been through negotiations when I was an executive director from 2013 to 2015 here, and worked with the school board, the director of HR, and worked with the teams, and that was my first experience with closed sessions, trying to set parameters, compromise, and that was a big process. So it had been a while when I came into this position and walked into this, and the SCAR teachers union had not been settled, and out of about, I don't know, 308, just under 400 school districts, we were last. And I just said, what? And so we really had to work together to get that done. Parameters, we went back and reset some parameters. I think they need to be reasonable to be able to bargain. Our director of finance will tell you that negotiations is really about relationships, and you need to have those relationships. You need to build trust. You need to have open dialogue. I don't ever want to be last again in the state, and teachers and staff, all staff, are our best asset in our district, and they need to be supported too. I think it's a balance, though, and we've talked about this. You need to appreciate and take care of staff because they take care of our kids, and that's our business. But you also need to make sure that you have enough support to support the teachers and the staff in the classrooms. And so that's really a balance. We've set up meetings. Our director of HR, another phenomenal leader, has worked in other districts, and just to try to move this up more, we need to start to shift and have more meetings earlier. I've learned that you need to work with both the language in the contract and the finances in the contract, benefits, health insurance, retirement. So all of these things need to be taken into consideration. Let me just read this again. Yes, and this last time we ended up using a mediator. That's the first time that I've worked with a mediator, and it was a long process, but I felt like it was really helpful to keep things in a good place, because again, it's about relationships and making things happen. Okay.
Thank you. And you have 30 minutes left.
Okay.
So I'm going to handle the last few questions here, the next three. If your closest colleague and your harshest critic were asked to share their perspectives about you, what would we hear?
Oh boy, I might hear a lot. I would say, first, I think relationships. I think interpersonal skills. I would put students, have my little reminder here, because students are at the heart of everything we do. That's how we make decisions. I would say that I need a lot of input before we make decisions. Need to see the strengths and the possible challenges, and a longer processor because I want everybody's input. But I think once a decision is made, I will own it. Coming into this, I would say, coming into this position, I was very green and had a lot to learn, and still learning. When you've been at elementary schools and other places, there's a lot of politics, a lot of diverse viewpoints, and you need to appreciate it. Our community is complex. Our community, we need to differentiate. We need to hear people. So I will say I have learned over the years. I don't think I listened as much as what I should have when I first started as even a principal, and learned from one of our social workers that just watching them model that makes a big difference. I think I try to meet people where they are and listen. Let's see. Sometimes I would say critics, sometimes equity, and I think it's how you define it. But I will say and say again, that is our North Star, and we need to work together to figure that out, and what that means for each individual child, and how we support them. When we make that promise to students, it's we will get to know you as an individual. You are known, and that's equity too. I would say, because I am a longer processor, Joan and I usually close down the house over at Central. And so I would say strong work ethic too.
Thank you. Okay, and then for the benefit of the community, we also submitted a question in advance of tonight's interview, and thank you for your response. The board did receive that and read that. And so I'm going to read the question for the benefit of the community, and then you have an opportunity to elaborate or add to that for anyone here. So the scenario was, as Stillwater Area Public Schools approaches the time to refresh our strategic plan, please describe your specific ideas for crafting our district's vision for the next 10 years. Describe how you might build upon and incorporate our Portrait of a Graduate into Stillwater's next strategic planning process.
Okay. This was hard to write, and at one point I edited it and downsized it, and I was still 272 words over. This was hard, and so this is what I want to hand out at the end, because I wanted to clarify more, and I'm usually not long-winded, but I was on that. And so let's see. So our strategic plan, refreshing the strategic plan. Our strategic plan went from 2018 to 2021, and the pandemic hit right before spring break of 2020. We, as I mentioned during my last interview, we were in survival mode. We've been in survival mode. Right now, with COVID positive cases staying below 10 for the last couple of weeks, and it's going down, we've been able to take a deep breath, and we have just been regrouping. We're building momentum. We know the community is going to demand and expect that we do something about our achievement. Our kids have been through that pandemic, they're behind. Literacy, reading, math, we need to look at our instructional review process, and we have a lot to do. So right now, as a bridge, we have an operational plan that we've been updating, and we are still running it by, we just on Tuesday had it in front of our administrators, and they provide a lot of feedback, so we need to still go back on this, but I'm going to give you a copy of this. This is kind of our work plan, and this drives our budget and resources. So we want to have the theme, Learning for Life, that's in our high school, and 2 anchors, trying to keep it simple with achievement, and then connections, everything that goes with that. We have early literacy, enhanced instruction, community engagement, aligning resources, the tech and design, climate, social emotional support. So it's all here. And again, we have this process, looking at needs, reviewing the portrait of a graduate, setting goals with the world's best workforce. I think we have 25 to 45 people on there. And thank you, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Cherry, because that is a huge, huge task, and they have made a lot of positive changes with that. And then you align your resources, and then you implement. So right now, this will be our bridge from what we've been doing in the past, as I stated, to moving to the future. So when we're doing strategic planning, back in 2013 to 15, when I was an executive director, we worked with John Massault, and he used the Cambridge model. And we had a lot of community members, a lot of staff, we had students. I think we even met over at Boutwell's. And it was a great process, ideas, but it was huge. It was huge. It was too big. I think in 1 year we had 96 things we had to complete, and they were big projects, and everybody wanted to do well, but we were a little scattered. It was good stuff, but it was too much. The second time, or after that, we redid another strategic plan. I wasn't as involved in that process, but that really focused on priorities, and it was adaptable, it was flexible, and things change all the time. And when you're doing long-term planning, that kind of needs to be at a higher level without as much detail. And the short term, you need to have really specific goals, but you have to be able to adapt. And so that's what we're hoping to do. But we're still taking that deep breath. So with that, when your question's about 10 years in a little essay that we had to write, and this is not really public yet, and our director of teaching and learning is very, very skilled, and we are amazed. We just keep saying, please stay here, don't ever leave. But they have gone through, he and his team, which is just next to nothing right now because we're trying to fill positions. They already have until 2032 an outline of the improvement process or the curriculum review, just the different subjects and what needs to be done. We're behind on that. And then they have a continuous improvement cycle, which I've never seen anything so detailed for year 1, year 2, years 4 through 6, years 7 through 10, and he didn't see my jaw drop, because they have been working. Also, you've been privy to our director of operations. They've done an amazing job with the long-term facility maintenance, capital outlay projects. They have to do a 10-year plan, and we've had to be flexible with that because of finances as well. And so they have that plan. You've seen that in board meetings. And then this, and I promise I'm not handing this out because I'm not stealing anybody's thunder, but this technology plan, the stakeholders, I just put Post-its on this, portrait of a graduate, mission and vision, standards, the support needed, systems, alignment, action, timeline, goals, and I just don't know that you see a lot of this behind the scenes. work. And the other departments were looking at doing the same with that, because this is what drives your decisions. And let me just read the rest of this. Sorry, I might go on corporate pay. Portrait of a graduate. And portrait of a graduate, I will go back to, I think we're a little cutting edge. We're a member of, is it Ed Leader 21? And we went to a lot of their professional development and trainings. And we came up with probably 8 to 10 C's. Communication, collaboration, we have the creativity. In here we have 4 C's, but we had a lot of C's. And I think that was even before Portrait of a Graduate had come around. And so we were ahead of the game there. But it's evolved into a portrait of a graduate. And this is what we need to share with our community. And this has got to be flexible. Our district, I remember long meetings with self-advocacy, and we studied what grit means and hardworking and being able to make your own decisions and choose your own future. But this portrait of a graduate kind of helps drive your decisions, and it should be the core value of your community. And this, we need to get out in front of people more. We really do. Let me take a look at this, just so, yep, these are the skills. So right here, the district, within the strategic plan with the portrait of a graduate, it helps you identify initiatives where you put your resources and support. It's your learning processes with teaching and learning. It's your instruction. It's utilizing professional learning communities, which I am very proud of the fact that we were able to add QComp this last year, which will give us support. We, again, our Director of Teaching and Learning is busy putting together professional learning community leads with our teachers, and they're doing a lot of planning. I think he had his first meeting at Stonebridge with that group, so that's exciting. They look at data, they look at the MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, to wrap around to support kids in any way they can, and that's not only the academics, but the social emotional support as well. And it's making resources available to families too. So what else can we provide families to support these skills? Our world is changing. It's ever changing, as you will see even in our previous strategic plan. And how do we adapt and how do we pivot? Every time I say pivot, I think of Friends with the couch. But we need to be able to pivot and change and be flexible, especially during these times. And I think the silver lining, and I've said this before, but the silver lining with the pandemic is what we've learned, and it's forced us to change with technology, how we instruct, giving kids more options than what they have before. We found at the ALC, a lot of our students like to be online, and how do we do that better? Okay, let me just look at this. Yeah, okay, I think that's
Great.
it.
Okay, so there's 15 minutes left. And our last question is, if you have any questions for us?
I do. Okay, I do. Let's see. As a school board member, what are you most proud of, and what motivates you to be on the school board? Because I know it's not an easy job for any of you.
Yeah, does anyone want to start? I can start. What motivates me is our students and the people, similar to what you said, and the people that serve our students day in and day out. So for students, for families, for teachers, and just for the community at large, we have it's worth every bit of time that we put into this for those reasons. So just a simple reason for me.
Yeah, I can go. I was just telling this story the other day that my kids are grown, and I have I have two boys, and they are both successful, although in very different ways, and they are where they are today. And I can trace it back to a specific teacher, and in some cases, a specific moment that, and that's the reason their path was set in life, because they were inspired by teachers in Stillwater area high school. And I think that teachers save lives. I think they change lives. I think that teachers change lives. And I want, I'm on the school board because I want all students to have that opportunity to find their passion in life like my boys did. So that's why I'm here.
I think Pete was first. Pete?
Okay,
We'll go to
sure.
Pete,
All
and
right.
then Tina, and then.
What am I proud of and what motivates me is people say thank you. When you're out and about, people just say thank you. They're glad that we're doing what we do. And a lot of that's because we're representing their thoughts and their wishes. But what actually got me to the door was my kids recently have graduated from Stillwater Area High School. And the school, from the beginning all the way through graduation, served them very well with where they were at. And I want that to continue for others.
Director Riley?
So for me, I am very proud of our community school and the programs that we have to offer. We have very successful programs, sports, athletics, arts, a lot of those things. I am excited about Pathways. What motivates me to be on this board is something, Vivian had touched on earlier, is that we are missing a lot of kids. And it is very important for me to ensure that we become the best academic school around. And I know we have the ability to do that and the capability to do that. And that's what keeps me going, is that we're not quite where we should be. And so the work is not quite done. And I am going to continue to press forward, as I have been, to make sure that we are the best, really.
Right?
Yeah.
For me, I've been very impressed, especially at being a school board member and getting to tour some of our schools, by our independent school leadership. Our principals are really impressive, which I experienced as a parent. I was very impressed with the principal at Brookview. When that school first opened, it was a well-oiled machine right from day one, and it was a wonderful experience as a parent to bring my kids into that kind of environment and feel very confident that they were going to be well taken care of. And what motivates me on the board is to be part of a strong leadership from the top of the district so that we can continue to support the incredible programs and education in this district so that they can do the good work that they already are doing and keep doing it to take care of our kids.
A quick one here. I have similar experiences to Director Petrie, Director Riley, and also my brother here, Pete. So for me, what you said is something that resonates with us in my home. My daughter is going to college, and if the teacher is hearing me right now, it's something we've always said at home. She is somebody who has a skill set that was noticed by one of her teachers. It was a push. The teacher kept pushing. Priya, you need to do this. Priya, you need to, a couple of teachers actually. Priya, you need to do this. And the father will go, no, no, no. So I went Priya doesn't talk much. So I went and I said, why don't you call the teacher and ask why she's asking Priya to do what she wanted Priya to do? And so the dad did, called, and the teacher explained. And that not only built the confidence of my daughter, but it also accelerated her opportunities. And so we never forgot. It might look like a simple thing to the teacher who made that possible. It's a math teacher in 7th grade, but it meant a lot to us. Because even if we saw it, the school, it wasn't something that we felt was important. But for the teacher to notice and help support, it meant a lot to us. So it did accelerate not only our confidence, but opportunities. And when we went, um, looking for colleges, and again, my brother, Director Pete here, um, asked me, he said, do you think Stillwater is prepared, Priya, to be able to make the decisions that she made and prepared her to be able to go to do the course that she's about to do? And I said, definitely. If it wasn't for what her teacher and her teachers, all of her teachers did and supported her, she probably will not be where she's at today. Because moving from the grade as she was to where she was, she indicated, she said, I am so happy and so confident to be in high school. She went from 7th to 9th. I'm so happy to be in high school. That in itself made a huge difference in terms of how she interacted with her friends, gave her that comfort level, and we saw the difference immediately. My son, he was part of those that went school searching as well, and computer science, and the director of admissions was talking about some of the introductory classes, and right here in Stillwater, we've actually done most of the work. And so the director of admissions said, oh, you have the basic knowledge, so you are a couple of steps ahead if you decide to come here. That was a huge pride for me as a mom. And so that's what I've always said it. I've always, and I'll repeat myself, that we have what it takes. Stillwater has the curriculum, Stillwater has the courses, Stillwater has the program to be able to compete and compete at the very highest level. I've always said it, and I will repeat myself again because I see it in my kids. So for me, I've always been proud of what we have here. I've always emphasized that. I've always said it, and I will continue to say it. In terms of being on the board, I think for me is really pushing for the fact that, and I agree with you, that we can truly be the very best that we strive to be. But it's actually seeing it and knowing we can get there. I always compare us to the other 3 high schools right here in Washington County. That's Math and Science Academy, East Ridge, and Woodbury High. And I will always say that in terms of the rankings, we're always behind all 3. It bothers me because I know we have what it takes to be the very best. So charity begins at home. If we can actually succeed in being the best in our area, then I think the challenge of actually moving ahead within the state, but also in the country, will be something that will be much easier to achieve.
I don't know how much time we have left. Did you have anything to add?
Sure, I guess I really appreciate the teachers in the school district. I had 2 kids that have graduated. They were both very prepared for college, way more than a lot of their other colleagues. I also, one of my kids kind of floated through, like it was easy for him. He's fine, he was prepared, he did his thing. The other kid, really, I needed to push a lot, and there were teachers who helped him a ton, but if there hadn't been a parent advocate there, he would have completely fallen through the cracks. And I don't want that to happen to other kids. I want it to be better, so.
And that's probably all the time? Oh, we have 5 minutes, okay. I have another question.
Great.
Let's see. How does the school board keep students at the heart of everything they do?
I can speak for me, it's, I try to, when I get invited, or just to go out into the community and watch an event, go to a show, to see something, see our kids doing what they love to do. That just helps center me and why I'm here, because it can get tiring. So it energizes me. Like you mentioned, filling your bucket, that's what fills my bucket, so.
Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again?
Yes. How does the school board keep students at the heart of everything they do?
I think there's a reason why we're here. If it wasn't for the kids, we'd probably go to sleep, wake up in the morning thinking about our kids. And some of it is a reflection of our own kids. We look through the eyes of our own kids, and we look at the broader community in terms of the kids in our district. And so for me, what goes out in the community, I'm always asking. I may not be talking, but I'm always asking. What's going on at school? What is happening what kinds of things do you hear that all the kids talk about? Because these little filtrations are things that are very important. Sometimes kids may not come up to say things even to their parents or even to the teachers, but I think they speak amongst themselves. And so for me, it's always paying attention to those little details and always seeking that feedback without really making the kids understand that I'm trying to poke nose there or trying to get some gossip. It's not a gossip, but it's really trying to find out what's happening. And I think it's important for us to hear those filters because you might not hear those filters. Staff members might not hear those filters. But these are things that are important for us to be able to that awareness is important for not only the safety of our children, but also in terms of the growth of our children. And so for me, I'm always paying attention to those little things out there. I don't go out much, but I do make sure that those filters back. Thank you.
Director Ryan.
So for me, my life is centered around kids, right? I have 6 kids, 8 grandkids. Everything I've done my entire life has centered around kids. Whatever business adventure I've dreamed up with always involves kids. Being on the board is tough. We have a tough community. It would be much easier for me to walk away. Every time I envision myself walking away, I picture the little kids that I'm leaving behind. Somebody needs to stand up here and be an advocate for those kids. That's how you keep it in the center.
I'll jump in.
So how do I keep kids kind of at the center of what I do? I guess I'm somebody who really enjoys learning and educating myself. And I found that as a board member, this is an opportunity to learn more and more about our education system and kind of from a very high level, the structures and the visions that really propel our kids forward into the future. So when I'm approaching this, I'm constantly thinking, what are the skills and necessary educational tools that our kids are really going to need going into the future, especially in a post-pandemic world. So I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, reading books, trying to really get a good idea of what skills our kids are going to need in the future, and then keep those ideas in mind while I'm listening to programs and priorities from the district as well, so that our kids, my kids are in elementary school right now. We've got a few more years before we're done, and the world is going to change a lot in those years. So for me, I'm hoping that and I'm quite confident that this district will be able to adapt and educate my kids for the ever-changing world that we're living in.
Yeah, go ahead. Pete.
Sure. If I'm at a school event, a sports event, or an arts performance, whatever, I see the kids doing well, and I say, I'm a part of that as a school board member. If I'm showing a home, people want to move to the Stillwater School District because of the Stillwater School District. I'm a part of that. I substitute school bus drive, and when I'm taking kids home or picking them up, and I see their excitement, I'm a part of that, and that's how I keep the students centered in the decisions that we make here.
I think the majority of the decisions we make here are actually more just technical things of running the school district. I mean, I think the students are the center of the school, and that's very important, but what the school board generally does, I mean, it's normal meetings, it's not really, it's just about running the school system more than the kids. But things like this, like interviewing superintendents, that's like, because you're trying to find the best person to make the best decisions for the kids in the schools. So it's a combination, but I think the center of it is the kids, but a lot of the school board's tasks are just like bureaucratic tasks, you know? And you have to learn a lot about what you're allowed and not allowed to do, so you can do a good job.
Perfect.
Time is up. Okay, thank you. We get organized here, and I'm going to pass this
Yeah.
out.
Here's two. I know, but some people think, do I say Kelsenberg or Pete? I'm so used to Pete, you know?
That's why I call it Pete.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melinda.
I should
Thank
have
you
known
so
about
much,
that.
Melinda.
Last time,
Thank you.
yeah, Kelsenberg's not easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you know, sometimes Boy Scouts and things like that, they're supposed to be proper to say Mr. Kelsenberg. And I'm just uncomfortable with it. I'm just maybe too casual, I don't know. That's why I thought I was giving you permission to say
Thanks, Don. All right, welcome back. Thanks for coming
Oh,
again.
thank you.
You've got the longest to drive, so we really appreciate it. All right, so it's going to be a similar format to last time. We're going to go around the table and ask you a few questions. We have 60 minutes, so Barb is going to kind of show you the reminder cards, and we'll do our best to help you keep on track of time. Just really quick, I do want to, well, I should let you know too, the last question will be your opportunity to ask us questions if you have any. And we'll start by introductions again, and so I'm Allison Sherman, Board Chair.
I'm Katie Hockert, Vice Chair.
Vivian Vadova, Director.
Tina Riley, Director.
Pete Kelsenberg, Director.
Annie Porbani, clerk.
Bev Petrie, treasurer.
Great. All right, we'll jump right in here. First question, since your first interview, is there anything you have thought of that you wish you had told us? In addition, is there anything you spoke to in your first interview but wish to elaborate on further?
Yes, I'm wondering, did I get the applause card this time? I don't get that. All right, just strictly the time. Boy, you're tough. Anything I thought of since the last time? I just want to reiterate some of the things that I said the first time because this kind of came up in the first question. I still believe, and I've thought a lot about this, and even that was kind of just confirmed with the tour that I saw this forenoon and afternoon. There's a lot of potential here. When I see Stillwater, I see potential. I see possibilities. I see options. Nothing has, I know that's not what the question says, but nothing has changed my view on that. In fact, I actually think that to a greater extent. I think the options are here and the possibilities are here as far as the strategic planning process. And I know you cleverly asked me a question about the strategic planning process. You have opportunities in that as far as the direction of the district, the variables that, and I believe you're going to ask me again this question later on, the variables that we're going to be paying attention here in Stillwater, the community end of it, all parts of the district, I believe that there are a lot of options and possibilities there because we have disparate growth occurring in Stillwater that we have to pay attention to. That is absolutely going to drive things that happen down the road in the short term and in the long term also. So we still have to be paying attention to, and I saw an eclectic mix of buildings today, fantastic people, the old and the new. If you cleverly did that to me, kudos to you. I saw that. And so there's clearly some issues that are going to be coming up as far as population densities, all the way to how do we get folks to vote for something in another part of the district? What do we do with some of our older buildings? How do we remodel? What are we going to do? How is all of this going to work? And then how do we have the community support? That's a huge thing. How do we have the community support? So that, I think, is still an opportunity. In addition to that, we have, obviously, because of that, levies and bonds that we will be paying attention to. So we need to have an engaged community. We need to have them with us. We all need to be in this together. And I think the key there is, as I thought more about this, is focusing on similarities. What's bringing all of us together in Stillwater? What is it that we all, not the differences, what are the similarities that we can go together on? And I think that's how you do it, but that's another big area that I know is a challenge coming up to us. I also know that, and I said that this first interview, and nothing has changed my mind on this one, we still have some obstacles. We still have some old feelings. We still have some hurt feelings. We still have some disparate opinions that we need to pay attention to. And when I think about those as opportunities again, because sometimes when things look a little chaotic, that's when you can actually move the most. That's when you can actually go forward and accomplish real significant things. So I think that actually is a plus here when I think about that. And again, that happens by looking at what are the commonalities? What can we pull in together? And it's the students, it's the kids. That's the commonality we all have, no matter where we live in the district. So I think that would be relevant to the question you're asking me. That would be the most important things that I would want to stress at this time.
Thank you.
All right, next question. We believe building effective leadership teams is critical to student success. As you look at Stillwater area schools, what specific competency and leadership traits would you look for in administrative colleagues on your team and why? If you were to feel some realignment were necessary, please provide specific examples of how you would go about making a change.
This must be the winner for the longest question of the evening. I hope. I better look on the back here, though. Here's how I think you do it. Because in Stillwater, we have already determined, you have the portrait of the graduate. We also have determined that we want students to be engaged, supported, seen, and to be served, and then you go back to the portrait of the graduate. This is what I would do in Stillwater. We have the key things. So let me go back to the portrait of the graduate. You know, the collaboration. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to be good communicators. We want them to be creators. And we want them to also be able to speak for themselves and support themselves. Okay? So if all these descriptors, and they're in, we have them. If all those descriptors are great for kids, don't they apply to us too? So when I'm thinking about where to go with this, to me, those are big terms because there's a whole series of stuff that happens under each one of those. We have them. They're here. So relevant to the question you're asking, so if I'm looking at leadership, yeah, do we want leaders who know how to engage with people? Absolutely. Do we want leaders who know how to communicate, be creative, solve their own problems? Absolutely. So I think that would be where I would start, because if it's good for the kids, if we're the adults, if we're the role models, shouldn't we be role modeling it for the kids? I think so. So I think we look at those competencies, because if the administrative team has those competencies, those are big areas. You're going to have an administrative team that is rocking and rolling. If they're performing on the rubric, you know, we're putting everything in there way on the right, we're talking about, because I'm suggesting all of this should be on a rubric because it should be measurable. If the kids have rubrics, if the teachers have rubrics, why shouldn't the administrative team have rubrics? Where it goes all the way from someone who's just exploring, emerging, sustaining, and then they're beyond that. So that's what I would look for in those competencies. I know that there's packaged things you can buy off the shelf. I absolutely know that. But if we want things to actually be relevant to what we're doing here, I think we have to look at the local, the homegrown. We can do this and make that relevant for the administrative team. And then on the second part of the question, realignment is necessary. This would apply to anybody. If, first of all, you have to believe people are going to do the job. Last time I was here, I said, let them do their work. Let them do their job. Don't micromanage somebody to the extent that they're saying, get away. I don't need that level of micromanagement. But if someone is not performing, then you have to tell them. You have to talk to them, and you have to have private conversations with them and say specific things that have happened. Lots of examples. You just can't tell someone, hey, you need examples. That's in fairness to the person you're talking to. And then you have to, in my example, show them where they are in the rubric. Let's say someone isn't very good at collaborating. So you look at where in the rubric they are. We want them obviously to be at least minimum sustaining, meaning they're really good at doing the collaboration part. And if they're just emerging or exploring, we want that individual to know what they need to do to get to the next level. So you give folks an opportunity to improve and get better. And so you do that with data and examples, and that's why you do. And when that is done to individuals, I have seen way more progress. They'll go, okay, I didn't know that. Nobody's ever told me. I hear this all the time. Nobody's ever told me that. And I think those people, if you believe in them and say you can do that, they will do it and they will rise up and they will perform. So that's how I would answer the second part of that question.
Great, thank you.
Our district is becoming increasingly diverse in age, religion, education, ethnicity, race, socioeconomics, and political views. What would you do to help unite a district that has such a breadth of views and experiences? Please be specific.
First of all, I'm glad you're going sequentially here, so it's less confusing to me as far as I'm following who's asking the question. So thank you for that little one small thing. First, on this area, the most important thing is for all of us to realize this is a great thing. This is a positive thing. This is a fantastic thing that we're becoming more diverse, that we have more viewpoints, that we have more cultures, that we have differing views and opinions on everything. This is a plus. It's a plus. It's a great thing to have in the community. So the first thing is, I think there's a mindset that you have to go into drilling. It is a plus. And then you also have to realize that, this is the way the world is. Maybe my neighborhood looks a little different. Maybe my school looks a little different, but this is the way the world is. This is the way our kids are going to be interacting when they talk to anybody who runs a business. Most of our kids are going to be working somewhere. Unless we're rich and you inherit something, God bless you, but most of us are working. Talk to anyone who's running a corporation, ask them, do your employees have to work with people from other countries, from other backgrounds, from other nationalities, from other religions? They will tell you, yes. So this is actually a plus. This is a great opportunity for us to be working on that. Now you're asking for specifics. So here's what I think you have to do. One is you have to make sure that the curriculum that we're using, it's diverse, it's responsive, and the assessments make sense. This means when we're going through the curriculum adoption cycle, looking for textbooks and deciding what to do, how to hit the Minnesota standards, because I think I said this last time, the standards only say where you should be. They don't say how to get there. That's why we hire the fantastic teachers, for them to guide the students in the journey. And so, but when we're doing the curriculum adoption cycles, we want to look at where are the writers or creators coming from? What's their background? Do they have diverse viewpoints? Do we have authors, stories, scientists that reflect the cultural background of our students? Do our students see themselves in the curriculum? They have to. It's not, well, that'd be nice. They have to. And so, but that also goes with the curriculum that's not up for the adoption. So to me, this isn't a, well, once every 7 years we'll follow the curriculum adoption cycle, and then we'll take a look at what we're doing, and then we'll see if it's culturally diverse, culturally relevant. After the assessments all make sense, and we have the right rubrics. No, it's every year we're looking at this and changing it, pulling things out, adding things in. That's really how you do it. And so even though we're just paying a little extra attention on the adoption cycle, so we have to do that. In addition to that, we also have to make sure that the students see themselves in the people in the room. Do they see themselves? And when they're doing assessments, are the assessments fair, culturally relevant? Are they? We need to take a look at that. And we also need to consider the assessment is a big area. We could be here till midnight, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to be here till midnight. It's a monster area, and we have to get the assessment component right, because that's when kids check out. It's when something doesn't work in the assessment, they stop turning something in, they don't do something. So the assessments have to be also useful and relevant and make sense to them. Otherwise, even as adults, we do, if we don't see a use or a relevancy to something somebody is asking us to do, what do we tend to do? We don't do it. Or we hem and haw, or we wait till the last minute, just like the kids do. So we also want to make sure that the assessments make sense for our students. And then while we're doing that, we also have to have, on the specific level, we have to have the clubs for the kids to participate in. We also have to have some programs. AVID, I saw evidence of AVID programs today. You have to have those AVID programs, you have to have the REACH programs, whatever, there's different words for it. The BAR program, you have to have those programs in place to help support kids along the journey. And they have to exist in the elementary, the middle school, and in the high school. So I don't spend too much time on this question. Those would be some of the specifics that I'd be looking for.
Okay, how do you go about developing a budget? When resources are at a minimum, how do you go about prioritizing funding and, if necessary, cut the budget? Again, be specific and then explain how you help inform district stakeholders regarding school finances.
I'm gonna go very simple right now, because last time I also said, you know, sometimes it's the simple things you have to do well. Sometimes it really is. On the budget, if you've done your strategic plan well, and you've done all that well, the budget is easy. Now, I know it's really not easy, but that's where you figure out that's gonna drive where the money's gonna go. That's gonna drive the programs you're gonna support. So it's really not up to one individual to say, I wanna redirect $500,000 over to here. That's not how it works. To do it well, the strategic plan, the overall plan is driving where the money is going. And so that's why when you get to the budget, it should be obvious. I'll say that it really should be obvious. It's not supposed to be a mystery where the money is gonna go. You're gonna support the programs that you said were important. So if we have, for example, engagement, we want kids engaged. So if we have programs that principals are telling us that they want, and it will cause higher levels of engagement in the kids, do we want to support those programs? Absolutely. So you want to figure out how can the budget support those programs that are causing and driving higher levels of engagement with the system. In addition to that, if we have, for example, use the example, if we have some programs that are causing kids to be better communicators, that's one of the outcomes of the graduate, portrait of a graduate. If we want that, so if we have programs that are specifically designed trying to help kids be better communicators to other students or to other teachers, et cetera, that's where we also want to make sure that the budget is sent to support that. Now, as far as the, I'm looking here at again to see if you're asking me about process, and you're not. So you're asking me about priorities and how to do that. So what this also means, and this is hard for some individuals, you're gonna redirect money. And this causes pain for some individuals. So there may be some programs or something else that's happening that you are not going to support because it really isn't in the strategic plan. It doesn't support any of the strategic plan goals or areas of emphasis. So you are going to not support those. You're going to redirect it to your higher priorities areas. This is a human, it's very difficult for individuals. I don't want to minimize that it is, because it is. And that's why you have to have your strategic plan down. You have to have those priority areas. So it makes sense to everyone why money might be shifting from program A to program B. That's how you do that on the priorities. That's in a nutshell how I would look at it.
Thank you.
All right. Many students are suffering from stress, mental health, and behavioral issues. These are just a few barriers they face to reaching their full potential. Give us distinct examples of how you would implement a support system for staff, parents, and students to reduce these and other barriers hindering their full academic and social emotional growth.
The first thing we have to do is recognize the feelings that people are having. And these feelings cover a huge gamut under this topic. We're talking about the mental health, behavioral issues. It's a human crisis is what it is. And it goes all the way from some individuals not feeling much of a crisis to other individuals who, it's a crisis. I'm in crisis right now. For example, this year we've sent more kids to treatment centers than we've ever sent before, ever. They're in crisis, and it's right now. So we have to, one is recognizing it's all over everyone. It impacts the kids, it impacts the teachers, it impacts school board members. I talked to board members who used to be board members 20, 30 years ago. They don't want your job. They don't. They say, I never would be a board member now. I don't know how these board members are doing it. So this level of different crisis, it's running the whole gamut. It's hitting all sorts. It's the parents, talk to the parents. Some of it, it's in the parents. It's everywhere. And so the first thing to do is recognize it's real. After that, what can you do? This is when you're also going to look at your plan, strategic plan. What can you support? What is in there that makes sense? So, but specific to the area that you're talking about, you have to make sure you have the counselors. But the most important, and the social workers, but the most important frontline people, what are the teachers doing? They are your front line with most of the kids. How are the pairs interacting with them? How are the teachers interacting? So this means you need specific, targeted professional development to help staff know what to do. Because there's a lot you can do with kids and other staff before you send them to the counseling office. There's lots of things, and so we want the staff to know how to act. And this is very different. Most of us in education, talk to any teachers, they will tell you, I wasn't trained in this. I wasn't trained in trauma. I wasn't trained how to handle some of these issues that I'm hearing about that the kids are talking about. It's true. So we have to provide that for them. And so we want to make sure that the teachers and the individuals who come at first contact are getting specific training on how to deal with it. But at the same token, we have to realize that some of them are in crisis also. And for example, when I met with the teachers one-on-one and asked them how things were going and what was going well, I had some teachers say things were going great. And I think I last time said this to you also. I had some teachers look me right in the eye and say, Noel, I can't do this anymore. I've been teaching for 25 years and I don't know if I can do this anymore. And so we also have to realize that we have to pay attention to the caregiver. And so we have to support those folks also because they need the support too. And we have to acknowledge and recognize that. And so while we're doing all these things, we also want to make sure that in addition to the specific targeted staff development, we're hitting all of the individuals who come into contact with the kids, because that's the largest group that we're paying attention to. Teachers is probably the second largest group. I don't want to we cannot forget the teachers. And we cannot forget the paras, and we can't forget the custodians, because I met a custodian today who I'm pretty certain almost all the kids know who that custodian is, just the way that custodian was acting around me. So I know that person is also a frontline person, so they need to know, what do I do, you know, when some of this stuff starts happening. So you do that, and you also have to have all of your programs that are supporting the life skills, social, emotional skills. You gotta have those programs for kids at risk. But at the same, and those are the ones we think of the first, having all the AVIDs, the REACHES, and the BARS programs and all those other supports. But at the same token, we have a lot of high-performing kids. They're not thriving. Well, you look at them and you talk, and they look at them, and it looks like they're doing well, and some of them are. Some of them are not. And so we need to recognize that it's not sometimes who we think it is. So we need to go out of our way to ask individuals how things are going. Seriously, we do. How are things going? Might be the most important question I ask all day long. How are things going? It's the simple things sometimes that we don't want to forget. So those are the things that I would first be looking at in answer to your question.
Thank you.
So, okay. All right. Now, my question is in two parts. So, get ready. All right.
Bracing myself.
So what trends do you see happening in career, technical, and special education? And describe for us how you stay current on these trends, and specifically how you would explore what lies ahead in the future for career, technical, and special ed programs.
Did you volunteer to give me this question? Okay.
It's just two parts.
That is a two-part question. That's another monster question. Here's where I think this is going. On the career part of it, and where I'm coming from now, we're building a career academy high school, because that's what the folks up there want to do. They're all in. We're gonna do the whole thing, career academy. We're gonna do everything in. Fantastic, great for them. First of all, the career technical part of it. I'm gonna repeat myself a little bit, so I apologize what I said last week. I have never seen something that resonates with parents like this career and technical education, ever. I have never seen an educational topic like this that I see parents' heads nodding in the crowd. They're going, they get it. Yeah, why didn't we do that? Why weren't we doing that 20 years ago? How come somebody wasn't talking to me about career and technical education? I see that train only growing. And the reality is, because the reality is, we have finally figured out that it's not a hierarchy between those who go to 4-year schools, 2-year schools, 1-year schools, trade schools, or kids who just go into the workforce. For years and years, we thought it was a hierarchy. It's not. It's a level playing field with just different options and areas for kids to go into. That's what it really is. Because some of the most successful people I know they didn't go to a four-year school. And we all know folks like that. So on the career and technical ed, one, that is only going to become more important because that's where 70% of the jobs really are. They're not, even though we're sending about 70% of kids to four-year schools. And that's not a negative on the four-year schools. Your question is specific about the career and the technical part of it. But I do want to add that the kids who are going to the four-year school, that doesn't mean that they don't get any career experience. I don't think that's the right way to look at it. They're the ones who probably need it even more. Because if they make a mistake and they make a bad decision about which four-year school and which major they're going into, they're burning through serious cash and they're acquiring serious debt. And again, I can be talking about college debt and you just see the parents' heads start to nod about the kid who, their child who freshman, sophomore, junior year switch majors in a four-year school. They have no marketable skills. They got to kind of start all over, and they're $20,000 to $40,000 in debt. Everybody knows somebody who's done that. So on the career part of it, I also think I don't want to skip the four-year degree. Those folks need just as much guidance as kids who want to go into the technical end of it. So what that means is that we need to make sure that the pathways in our high schools, so kids are making smarter decisions. We are making it easy for them to have better judgments about which way to go. We're giving them better advice. So they're figuring out things, and not for a specific job, but for a job cluster, a big area they want to head into. And then they can, because we're still a high school, they can figure some of that stuff out a little later once we steer them in the right general direction. So that's on the career technical side. On the special education side of the equation, I think what's happening is that it's finally dawning on us that kids have different strengths and weaknesses, just like all of us do. We all have things we're better at. We all have things that we're not so good at. You don't want me fixing your snowmobile in the trail at midnight trying to get it started. I can do other skills. I have other talents. I have other skills. So kids are the same way. We have finally realized, and this is a good thing again, that kids have unique skills. For example, I was talking to one parent one time, and this parent had a daughter who was straight A's. Boom, National Honor Society. Everybody loved this girl. Boom, boom. It's the kind of kid that most of the teachers want sitting in the front row. No problems whatsoever. And then there's a son they have. It just happens to be male, female. This is not a gender thing. Has dyslexia, dysgraphia, is on an IEP, doesn't see relevance to school, doesn't know why he needs to go to school. So you got two kids, same household, completely different directions to go. So I think what that means for the special ed is that we still want them to go on the path they're going to go. They're going to choose a path. We're going to help them choose a path. But the outcome is still the same. We want both kids to be communicators, to be creative. We want them to be collaborative, know how to work with other people. We want both kids to be engaged, supported, seen, stand up, be proud of who they are. We want both kids to, but the path is different. And so the daughter's gonna probably go a certain path. The son is gonna go a different path, and we have to be careful of stigmatizing and saying this is the wrong path, or this is not as important of a path. And that's what we used to talk in education. That's kind of the way we thought, years and years ago. So that is the shift. So in special ed, the biggest shift that I see is this, okay, so you have some weaknesses. We're a school, we're treating the academic side of you, but I know an awful lot of kids who are on IEPs. They're gonna be fine in life. They really will, because they're good in something else. it's in one of those portrait of the graduate areas. Maybe it's not the academic area, but it's somewhere else. So I think one is recognizing that and having that mindset that just because you're an IEP or a 504, that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. That doesn't mean we can't provide an avenue. That doesn't mean we can't do that. And if that mindset is there, these kids can go out and conquer the world. They're just going to blaze their own path on the way to our portrait of a graduate. So that's the biggest thing that I see with the special ed kids. Now let me take a quick glance and see if I missed anything here. Those would be the big things that I would be looking at in those two areas.
Thank you.
Describe your experience in working with employee unions and collective bargaining, including the negotiations process. Please be as specific as possible.
Well, yesterday, I spent all day in a negotiating meeting with the teachers. On this topic, you're asking me about, because we're consolidating 2 school districts together, I probably had, and the teachers have been great, the ASME unions have been great, we're merging 2 contracts together. And we have a tentative agreement on the teacher one. The ASME contract is done, the individual contracts are done, but that is a very different experience than what I've had negotiating the regular contracts. In the regular contracts, you tend to focus on certain topics. You know, in some years you focus on topic A or topic B or whatever it happens to be. But when you're negotiating 2 new contracts, everything in the contract is up for discussion. And I mean everything. And when I say that, I mean this positively, because 2 contracts are about the same, like the seniority process. But they're not worded the same. So how do you take 2 different contracts and come up with the wording that everybody can believe and buy into? That's another discussion for a different question. It takes a long time. And so we've been working through it. There's a number of issues we've had to work through with both the ASME and both the teacher contract. It just takes longer to do that. And you have to realize that. And then, in my mind, with the bargaining, of course, we need the school board has to be able to pay for it. Whatever you come out of, the school board has to be fiscally solvent. They do. And the other unions, they understand that. But they also are looking at it from a different point of view. And so they're not really antagonistic viewpoints. So part of this is that mindset again, that the little things you have to get right. You know, so we are, seriously, in the beginning, we argue about, okay, whose turn is it to bring rolls and donuts? Where are we gonna meet? How are we gonna do this? How many people are gonna be here? You talk about the ground rules, so to speak. So everybody is aware, and you set those up, and you realize it's a long give and take. And you have to realize that it's not well, let me see how much I can squeeze from the other side. That's kind of classic old style negotiating. You can pull a book off the shelf and they'll tell you exactly how to squeeze as much out of the other side as you can. You can't do that because that will come back and bite you the next negotiating round. So above all, you have to be fair. You have to treat the other side professionally. You have to buy them donuts. And you have to realize that the end goal is really the same. It's how do we have a fair contract, fair working conditions, so the administrative side can get done what they need to get done, and then the other bargaining groups, they can get done what they need to get done. That's kind of, in a nutshell, how I view the bargaining process.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to handle the last 3 questions. The first one is, if your closest colleague and your harshest critic were asked to share their perspectives about you, what would we hear?
Right now, the harshest critic right now would tell me, yeah, this is what they tell you. Is this where I can say, shut the camera off for a little bit? They would say, Schmidt, you're abandoning us in the middle of the ocean. You're bailing on us. We're in the middle of this construction project. We got a high school in the middle of construction. We have another elementary school that's starting. We just started on this curriculum. We got everybody going in the same direction. We finally got everybody. And if you called them up, I can tell you what they would say to you. They'd say, he's leaving us. He's ditching us. It'd be something along, right now, in the immediate, right now, that's what they would be saying to you. On the other side, you would have people, if you asked them right now that question, they'd say, I hope he doesn't get the job. Don't hire him. No, I don't want to wish you good luck, Schmidt. No, I'm gonna pull the battery out of your car or something. That's what they would tell, you'd hear both, right now, you'd hear both competing voices right now.
Okay, so question 12, I'm going to state it for the benefit of the community who's watching. But I just want to let the community know that this was a written response, so that you did provide it in writing to the board. And this is your opportunity to maybe summarize it or make some additions or clarifications, anything that you choose to do. So the question that we submitted in writing was, as Stillwater Area Public Schools approaches the time to refresh our strategic plan, please describe your specific ideas for crafting our district's vision for the next 10 years. Describe how you might build upon and incorporate our Portrait of a Graduate into Stillwater's next strategic planning process.
And I see you have cleverly given me what I sent you. Unfortunately, you neglected to leave the answers off too, again, but I'll overlook that. Take what I've said so far about Portrait of the Graduate and strategic planning and just plop it in here again on that. So I'll skip some of the details on this and go to more the gestalt, the whole of what I sent you. On the strategic planning, how it's done is important. It's not just let's just do this because we're supposed to, the public expects us to do it, it'll make us look good, put it in a file folder and throw it in some cabinet somewhere, and maybe somebody will look at it in 3 years down the road. That happens. So I've been involved in implementing a strategic plan. I've been involved in making a strategic plan. I've been involved in running one of the action teams of a strategic plan when I was in White Bear Lake as a principal. So I've been on all ends of the strategic planning process. And so the most important thing is to set it up right. If we set it up right, it'll go well. Now, I know there's going to be some glitches because you always have to anticipate something's going to go wrong. I always tell people, and they'll tell you this, he's going to say something's going to go wrong. And you have to expect something to go wrong because it will. But if people know something's going to go wrong, it just helps you down the road. And so that's a little side part of it. But the big thing is setting it up well. So I think the biggest thing on the strategic planning process that'll say in this setting right here is that the people who really know what's going on are the ones doing the work. So the ones who are actually doing the work, you have to have them involve your strategic planning process. This seems like a simple thing. It is. But if you miss this one, you're done. So you got to have those folks on who really know how the jobs work. In addition to that, we have to make sure it makes sense with what we're currently doing, but the strategic planning, the way I look at it, it is not, let's tinker with the system. Let's see how we can figure how can we make community ed go a little better? How can we make the instruction go a little better? How can we help the music department a little bit better? That's not a strategic plan. Those are operational details. Those are functional details. The strategic plan is, this is where we want to go. This is the Phoenix Rising. Where do we want the Phoenix to go to? What is our wildest dream on where we want things to go? That's what, to me, what a strategic plan is. And that drives what happens in a strategic plan and what you're putting in the strategic plan and what the people are thinking about in the strategic plan. So that's a big thing that I think has to be covered in the strategic plan. And then once we're in the strategic plan, we have to realize that the people who are implementing, because at some point we're gonna have action plans. And on the action plans part of it, I'm waiting for another card to come up for you. All right, so I'm still okay. All right, so when you get to the action plan part of it, and that's the one everybody focuses on. We've done all this planning, now we finally get to the action plan. So on that part, which is critical, you have to assign it to somebody. You do. You have to assign it to a group. This is one other little thing that gets lost sometimes. Somebody's got to be in charge of it, and there has to be a system that they're reporting back. So there's some kind of marker, barometer, rubric that you're following to see, are we doing what we said we were going to do? And we've all seen strategic plans where people are going, well, I thought you were in charge of it. You don't want that. So, and then you have to have the reporting system back and be able to make the adjustments, and whoever's implementing the action plan has to have permission to make slight deviations. Because sometimes when you're coming up with a plan, you don't think of everything. You just don't. So when you're implementing it, the action planning team has to have permission, and you have to literally tell them this. It's okay if what we came up with initially isn't really gonna work in the field. So you have permission to go ahead and make some adjustments. So they have to know how to make the adjustments on that one. And then I've already talked about how to incorporate the portrait of a graduate in it. And you're also gonna do this before you're gonna look at what are the strengths of Stillwater schools, what are the weaknesses. You're gonna take an honest look at that. We're gonna take an honest look at where's the competition. Parents have choices. Parents have options nowadays. Who is it? You can't ignore it. You can't pretend it's not out there. So you got to pay attention to that. And then, oh, here it comes. I knew it was coming. I think I'm going to make it though, but thank you. So you also have to pay attention to, in addition, you got to have a group looking at the social, demographic, all of those other things that are happening within the district that you absolutely have to pay attention to. Population growth, declining population growth, any other critical issues that happen to be going in the community. Where are the roads going to be built? Is there something else happening that we should be paying attention to? Those are all things that somebody's got to get assigned to do, and the group has to pay attention to that. And then in addition to that, as all of this is developed, this is all going back and forth to, you're participating in this too, by the way. Don't think you're getting out of this. And so this is going back and forth between the groups who are working on it and the school board, so you see what's happening in real time as it's being developed, and then there'll be meetings and conversations, and this is also with the community too, because we can't leave them in the dark. This is a little thing, but it's a big thing. So they need to know what's going on. Oh, is there a strategic plan going on? Who's doing it? I thought they did one 7 years ago. Where are they meeting? Was I invited to the meeting? Who's there? They want to know who's there. Who are they going to tell? You have to tell the community all of these things, and you can't assume that they're going to pick them up through osmosis. You have to go out of your way to, in addition to the school channels, you also have to hit what I really like to hit is the newspapers, the flyers. People still do look at those shoppers. It's amazing how many people. We need to use avenues like that in addition to school models. And in addition to that, we have to figure out how to get information to people who don't have kids in the system. That is a huge chunk of people, and if any misinformation is going to occur, that's the group it's going to occur with. So we need to go out of our way to make sure that those folks know what's going on. So in addition to what I wrote you, for the purposes tonight, that's what I would say.
Great, thank you. So the last question, and we've got some time, just asking you if you have any questions for us.
Now, last time I skipped this part, I'm not gonna skip it tonight. Because I haven't seen the card come up with my 5-minute warning. So, and I can kind of tell by the questions you're asking, what you're looking for and what's important in Stillwater. And I can kind of tell by the buildings you had me look at and walk through and see all the fabulous people there. Even the ones where I was looking at one of the elementary schools, I was looking at the floor and they had these little things in the floor that had numbers, and then there's one with arrows, and I go, you have the SMART program here, don't you? And the principal said, yes, we do. Where kids are moving around the building and all sorts of things like that. And so the question is, and I'm gonna ask you this. I know there's been turmoil. Do you believe that turmoil is still there? Or do you believe that is slowly ebbing into the past?
Director Porbetti, did
I
you?
just inhaled, but that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
I'll go.
I thought you wanted to talk.
No, that's fine.
It's a deep inhale.
Well, that's a very good question. I would say that over time, it's still there a little bit, but over time, I think it simmered down a bit. But we still have a lot of work to do because there are things that members of our community that are still very relevant to the past, as much as we want to move ahead. But these are things that we acknowledge, and these are things that it really informs where we're going. So the recognition of such is what informs where we're going. So I think it's important for us as a board not to dismiss, but to not only acknowledge, but also be able to listen to all of those voices. So I would say that it was hard at first, truthfully, but over time, I think we've been here, some of us have been here over a year, some a little bit more than that. The longest serving board member is right there, Director Riley. So I think that we still have challenges, and my hope, because of the kids that we have, because of the focus on one Stillwater, and the collective growth and opportunities for our children and the district as a whole, I hope that we will be able to serve and provide those opportunities where those voices will see hope, and the collective movements of our community will also see hope, and that our children will be the better for it.
Director Riley?
Thanks for asking that question. I think it's an important one. To be frank, yes, it is still there. I think it can be fixed. It needs to be acknowledged. And I think that if we focus on common ground, such as academics, I think that's very important for this entire district. For parents, for the retired, community members with no kids in the district, also very important. In just for our community as a whole, if we can just focus on kids and their academic outcomes and make sure we rise to the top, I think that is a unifying piece. We need to stop focusing on buildings, I think. There has been much focus over the last 6-7 years on buildings, and our job as an educational facility and public education is academics. It's it's teaching these kids to have the skills they need to be successful when they leave our buildings. And that is very important to our community of all ages. And so I think it is repairable, but I think it has to be intentional. And I think it would be important to bring in members of the community that aren't necessarily being listened to or heard, because those voices get tired and they don't want to participate anymore. We've lost a lot of kids, right, to other opportunities in the district. Parents were mad and left. I would love to see us have opportunities in this district and make this district so amazing that we will be the preferred choice, that parents want to come back. I want opportunities here that our competitors don't offer. So I feel like we need to bring the focus back to how phenomenal that Stillwater schools can be, and make it desired, because we have a lot of heavy competition and we've seen a lot of loss, and I would love to see us grow and be number one. So.
Director Petrie?
I have a slightly different perspective. So we had some consolidations and school closings, I think about 5 years ago now. And I think that there was a lot of anger and disappointment in the community. I think that over time, those feelings have lessened. And I can point to a very specific metric, and that is that last fall, we passed a renewal of our operating levy, and we also passed a technology levy. And that was the first time ever in Stillwater that we passed two initiatives like that. And I want to tell you that I was co-chair in 2007 when we tried to get 3 questions passed, and we only passed 1. And so I think it is significant that the community came together and supported not only an operating levy, but that technology levy. And I think I point to that in saying that I think that some of those feelings have lessened. I think that a lot of people in this community have seen that we are experiencing in this community a significant geographic and demographic change. And the consolidations were an effort to try to deal with that. We still have a lot of growth in the south part of the district, and we are going to have to deal with that in some fashion. But I point to what happened in last November, and in saying that I think that, you know, we are probably more united in this community than some people think.
That's huge, because if the community was not supportive of the Stillwater area schools, we would have found out. And that's not what they did. So there's clearly a base of support here, a huge base of support, along with another group cluster who, for whatever reason, have differences of opinions. And part of the reason I'm asking that question is, again, because I think this is also a fantastic opportunity to keep going, and to help everyone focus on the commonalities that we have here. It's the students.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to put you on the hot seat or anything.
And Tim, go ahead, what?
I guess I think there has been turmoil, there's still some turmoil. I think some of the, there's some misinformation that happens, right? But I think there's a changing demographic. Both parts of the district are aging and parts of the district are growing and becoming more diverse. And there's also a big sensitivity with the inflation and with an aging population of the raising of taxes, especially. We just had a levy, and then people are kind of shocked. You know, they look at their tax bill and then they know that their groceries have gone up and their gas bill has gone up and everything's gone up. So I think we need to have, we have facility needs, but it's also gonna be touchy because people are struggling. I mean, there are people who are struggling in our district, and it's hard for them to look at their bills and think, oh, now we have to build another school and we just passed a levy, but I think people do support the schools. So it's just, it's a balance.
It is, and folks need to see value in whatever they're getting. They're paying taxes, so they need to see some value in something that they're seeing.
I think my only addition to that would be, I mean, I think that everyone at this table has their own perspective and insight. I tend to think that, you know, when I'm in the schools and talking to the students, who's kind of, that's my center, my North Star, I don't hear about ill feelings on, on consolidating schools or demographics or the things that are really still maybe sensitive for the adults. So while we want to recognize and be, and kind of honor those feelings, I think we all have to focus on that commonality, which is, it really is about serving our students. And our students just want to, love where they're going to school and the people that they're going to school with and have good quality teachers and instruction. I think that buildings do matter. And my perspective, I had a son that went to Lake Elmo, which you toured today. And it is an inequity in this district that cannot be ignored. And so I guess I would say that I hope that this board and future boards, whenever the timing is right, they move immediately, because the longer that building remains, the inequity that it is, and whether it's, I have never met anyone from the community that goes through that building and doesn't say, this is an issue. And by the way, it's also our most diverse school. So it's just not something that I think anyone at this table would probably be very proud of. That building is amazing, and my son loved every minute he spent there. But it's just, I worry that our kids maybe aren't thinking as much of themselves as we would want them to because of where they're going physically. And our teachers, our staff. So I'd like to see that addressed in the right time and in the right way and in the right manner. But we did have a community design team that did meet and talk about facilities and.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and it was unanimous in and there was a lot of support for what a lot of our buildings need, not just Lake Elmo, but what we need in a lot of our facilities. So, it's gonna be the right time and it's gonna be some conversations but I think people are ready. So I know our students are ready, so.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting how different students perceive things, that differently than how the adults perceive things. It is really it is really interesting.
Right, but
They
it's like
might
you
go,
said,
"What?
it's all
What
valid.
problem?" Okay.
Great. All right, well, thank you so
Okay.
much.
Well, thank you very much for, on a school night again, inviting me back late at night. I just have one thing to give you because someone said someone might want the first 90 days. So let me just torture you with one more thing. Thank you
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for,
Thank you for coming down. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Like a teacher passing it on the test or something.
Yeah, passed, all right.
Thank you. I don't want to do this too often. Thank you. And thank you, audience, for being here. Thank you.
Well, appreciate you coming all this way.
She gave us homework. Yeah.
Drive safe, please.
okay.
We need to adjourn the meeting,
Yeah,
don't we?
yep. All right, and I know that they're talking, but,
I just had one quick reminder for everybody.
yeah, let's just, if we can.
Everyone should enter their stuff, right?
Hey, guys. Can we just get it a little quiet in the room? We need to adjourn and just kind of do some last minute wrap up. So
We're
it'll just
almost
be a minute.
finished.
We're almost finished. Okay, go ahead, Barb.
I'm sorry. Okay, great, thank you very much. Again, a very productive night, a lot of work. You should be tired mentally because you listened very clearly again to all 4 candidates. I want to remind you to please input your EMD results into the electronic form tonight. As soon as I see that they're all in there, I'm going to let my colleague in St. Peter know. And I'll get the spreadsheet emailed to all of you tonight with those results, so you'll be able to look at those later tonight. But the sooner their input, the sooner he'll be able to turn that around and get it back to me. So I'll be sure to email it to all of the board members. I won't be getting you a hard copy this time, so just take a look at it when you get it and add it to all of the other information you're going to review before tomorrow's deliberations. So, thank you.
Great. And I'll just, again, thank you to the board. This has been a lot, so, but it's all for the best reason for our students and for our staff, and so thank you. And then also, thank you to the community who came out tonight. It's so amazing to see such engagement, so we all appreciate that. As Barb said, the EMD results will be sent out. We will be meeting tomorrow at 5:30 for deliberation. To make a really exciting decision. So I would just encourage everyone to read the handouts that were provided tonight, reread the written submission, go through your notes, consider the EMD results, but really kind of go back to that leadership profile and also the community engagement survey that was started at the beginning of this, because this is all about serving our community. And I guess with that, we can adjourn. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
I'm joking.